It was a gray, rainy morning in a city that never really cared much about the weather or the people trying to survive it. Life went on, regardless of the storms, inside or outside. A yellow taxi splashed through puddles as it weaved through the usual congestion. The driver, a man in his early 50s named Ahmed, was nearing the end of his shift. The night had been long, and the roads unforgiving. His back ached from hours of driving, and the small coffee in his cup holder had gone cold. Ahmed was just like any other driver on the road, quiet, tired, and forgotten by most passengers the moment they stepped out of his cab. But there was something about him. A softness behind his eyes. A stillness in his presence. As if he was someone who had seen too much and yet judged nothing. Someone who listened more than he spoke. That morning, just as he was about to call it a night, he saw her. A young woman, probably in her 20s, sitting near the corner of 5th and Rosewood, just beneath the bus stop shelter. Her head was down, a small duffel bag beside her. But what caught Ahmed's attention wasn't her face. It was the wheelchair. And more importantly, the absence of legs beneath the blanket covering her. He hesitated only a moment before pulling over. As the taxi came to a halt, the woman looked up, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Most cabs ignored her. It was easier that way for the driver in the world. But Ahmed rolled down his window and smiled gently. "Need a ride?" She blinked, unsure if she heard right. I don't have money." Ahmed looked at her for a moment. "Doesn't mean you don't need a ride." There was a long pause. Raindrops tapped against the roof like a soft drumroll as the moment hung between them. Finally, she nodded. Ahmed got out of the car, his boots splashing into the water. He went around to help her. The wheelchair had old rusted wheels, and her bag was torn at the seams. Without a word, he gently lifted her, she was surprisingly light, and helped her into the back seat, folding the wheelchair and placing it in the trunk. They drove in silence for a while. The city buzzed around them, but inside the cab, it was quiet. Peaceful, almost. After a few minutes, he asked, "Where to?" She hesitated. "Downtown. Near St. Anthony's Shelter." Ahmed simply nodded. No questions. No judgment. But as the minutes passed, her eyes kept returning to the rearview mirror. Something about his calmness made her feel safe, and without realizing it, she began to talk. "My name's Lily." Ahmed glanced back and smiled. "Ahmed." She looked down at her hands. "You probably wonder what happened." Ahmed shrugged lightly. "Only if you want to tell me." She was silent for a moment, then let out a breath. "Car accident. 2 years ago. I was a dancer before. Ballet, actually. That was everything to me." Ahmed said nothing, just nodded slowly. "My parents died when I was little. I grew up in the system. Dancing was my way out. I had a full scholarship to an arts academy. Everything was finally coming together. And then one rainy night, just like this, a truck ran a red light. Ahmed's fingers tightened on the steering wheel ever so slightly. I lost both legs. I spent 6 months in the hospital. The scholarship disappeared. The school moved on. And soon, so did the people around me." Her voice cracked. "I tried to stay strong. I did. But when you lose everything, including your reason to wake up in the morning, it changes you." Ahmed finally spoke. "I understand." Lily looked at him, surprised. "Do you?" He nodded. "I lost my wife to cancer 5 years ago. We were married 28 years. When she was gone, I didn't know how to breathe without her." They exchanged a look in the mirror. Two broken souls quietly acknowledging each other's pain. The rest of the ride passed in silence again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was comforting. When they arrived at the shelter, Ahmed parked and went around to get her wheelchair. But Lily touched his arm. "Wait, can I ask you something?" He looked at her curiously. Do you think someone like me can ever dance again? I mean, not like before, obviously. But, in some way? Ahmed took a moment before answering. I think you can do anything. Maybe not the way the world expects. But in a way that's yours. She smiled, eyes welling up. No one's ever said that to me. He helped her into the chair and walked her to the shelter doors. As she wheeled inside, she looked back. Thank you, Ahmed. You didn't just give me a ride. You reminded me that I still matter. And then she was gone. That could have been the end of it. One random act of kindness. A moment in time. But for Ahmed, something had shifted. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Lily. About how the world had forgotten her. How easily people like her slipped through the cracks. The next morning, he made a decision. He took the small savings he had and visited a second-hand mobility store. He asked about adaptive dance equipment, prosthetic fittings, and wheelchairs that allowed more flexibility and movement. The store owner, touched by his story, offered heavy discounts. Still, it wasn't enough. So Ahmed turned to the very passengers who had once sat silently in his back seat. He printed flyers. He talked to people. He shared Lily's story anonymously, of course, and asked for help. Word spread. A dancer who had once lost everything. A taxi driver who believed in her. Donations trickled in. Then they poured. A retired dance instructor offered to coach her. A studio donated space. A prosthetics expert offered his services for free. 3 months later, Lily stood, moved on a stage for the first time in years. She performed not with legs, but with heart. Her dance told a story of pain, of loss, and of rebirth. The audience wept. Not because they pitied her, but because they saw strength. And sitting in the front row, tears streaming down his weathered face, was Ahmed. He had never been to a ballet before. But that night, he saw the most beautiful performance of his life. Lily's story went viral. News stations covered it. Blogs wrote about it. Interviews followed. And every time she was asked how it all began, she said the same thing. It started with a taxi driver who reminded me I was still human. But the story didn't end there. Lily began a foundation for differently abled dancers. She taught children with disabilities to express through movement. She traveled the country, speaking at schools, sharing her journey. And Ahmed? He kept driving. Still quiet, still kind. He refused interviews. Refused attention. He would smile and say, I just gave a ride. That's all. But the truth was, he had given hope. He had changed a life. And sometimes, that's all it takes. One moment. One person. One choice. Because even in a world that forgets to look, someone like Ahmed shows us that the greatest impact comes not from grand gestures, but from small acts of quiet, powerful kindness. And in that single ride on a rainy morning, the world was reminded that humanity still exists. In the simplest of places. In the back seat of a taxi. In the heart of a man who chose to care. Because heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes, they wear seatbelts. And they ask just one question, do you need a ride?